So 41 years ago, Ron Evans climbed out of his Apollo capsule. Using the handrails, he moved to the rear in order to get a film canister. What was amazing about what he was doing was where he was located. He was 200,000 miles from Earth. And if he looked over to one side, there was a small Earth about the size of a basketball. If he looked over to the other side, there was a massive moon, huge in his view. I mean, can you imagine being in a place like that? And when he got the film canister, this was the actual beta cloth tether that he used to secure the film canister to bring it back into the Apollo spacecraft. Yes, I am a huge Apollo geek, and just to show you how much, here's my living room. Yeah, I know, right? I have a very patient wife and a very patient and understanding daughter to allow me to do this. And my Apollo Artifacts blog, of course. I believe the Apollo moon program was the most fundamental and exciting and interesting exploration that humans have ever done. Absolutely incredible. But it was also an exploration of communications. It was an exploration of communications because it was all captured on live television. And we were able to experience it, and I was a child at the time in elementary school, experience it live. Over 1 billion people saw the Apollo 11 moonwalk, 1 billion people coming together around this live communications. And as a child in elementary school, I remember they wheeled in the televisions on these rickety old things, and we would sit in front, and I'd be in the front row standing, staring up, because this is like the greatest thing in the world. I can't believe how cool this is. And so now I'm thinking, gosh, it's so interesting, this communications, that I see there's 3 areas of exploration we've had in the last 500 years that also coincided with areas of communications changes. And this is one, the Apollo program. I'm going to talk about the other 2, and then we will talk about an opportunity that every single one of us has in front of us. So the challenge of live television on the moon was almost as difficult a challenge as actually getting to the moon. This is a prototype camera that they used to train for Apollo 8. And because the scan lines were different and very, very fast, they weren't able to transmit using regular technologies. They had to create new technology. Sometimes around communications and exploration, you have to create something new. The Apollo program was audacious. This is 1K of memory for the Apollo guidance computer. It had 34K of power in total. 34K only. Can you imagine trusting your life to that? My iPhone has 2 million times that power. Can you imagine? And sometimes when you have to explore, you have to learn something that's new. This is a training Apollo portable life support system. And you actually had to put it on your back when you were on the moon. Of course, I didn't do this. And you can't train for this, right? I've spoke to a number of the Apollo astronauts about this. You can't train for 1/6 gravity with 100 pounds on the surface of the Earth, 20 pounds on the surface of the moon on your back. You kind of have to lope along like this, and you can't train for it. And it's that human exploration that's so interesting. I mean, robotics are great. You know, what we're doing on Mars with robotics is cool, but it's that human exploration. The Apollo program taught us how to think big. We had 400,000 people involved in the Apollo program, 400,000 people. And it was 4% of the national budget over a course of an entire decade. Can you imagine what an investment we made? And there were 20,000 companies involved, companies like Raytheon and IBM and Boeing involved in the program. And they were so excited to talk about what they were doing. Any company involved with the program, it was the greatest thing to be able to talk about it. This is Jim McDivitt. He's the commander of Apollo 9. You'll see in his shoulder, He's got a pocket, and there's a mechanical pencil in his pocket. This is that exact mechanical pencil. I know, I'm geeking out. Thank you for letting me geek out. And you can see the string up there. Cool, huh? Yeah, anyone wants to see it later, you can catch me later. But if you are a manufacturer of something as mundane as a pencil or a pen, you wanted to tell the world about it. And they did. And then they would, in consumer advertising on television, talk to us about things like Tang, and we drank it because the astronauts did. It was about television, and it was about live television, and this new era of live television that they could only do to bring this idea of the moon to us, and we all came together around it, making the astronauts celebrities. The astronauts became celebrities. I always wanted to meet one as a child. It wasn't until I was an adult that I've met 7 out of the 12 men to walk on the moon. So the next era of exploration that I want to spend a moment on was around the time of Magellan, 500 years ago. 500 years ago was also the invention of the printing press. The invention of the printing press brought humanity out of the medieval times and into the Renaissance, because all of a sudden people could read for themselves, and they didn't have to rely on the church leaders to tell them the truth. They didn't have to say, the church leaders said, oh, that the sun revolves around the earth. Well, no, maybe it's the other way around, and we could learn that for ourselves. It brought us out of the Middle Ages, a communications technology. We're in a new communications technology right now that's associated with another form of exploration, space exploration. This time it's not NASA. This time it's private companies leading the way. Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic. This is Elon Musk's company, SpaceX. He's the founder of PayPal. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon.com, also doing some interesting things in exploration. How many of you saw the Red Bull Felix Baumgartner? Raise your hands, look around the room. Wow, right? I know, amazing. It's like half of us saw this live because we were experiencing among each other on social networks. Everyone's telling each other, my gosh, have you checked it out? And we're on our smartphones and our tablets, checking out Felix Baumgartner. I tweeted it, by the way, DM Scott, for those of you on Twitter. I tweeted it, I blogged about it, I texted my daughter Allison, who lives in New York City, and she said, yes, I'm watching it. It was fantastic. And we didn't know as he was falling whether he was going to live or die. It was amazing, and it was so interesting. And yes, he did, of course, make it. He broke a bunch of world records. When we humans are exploring, we can do amazing things, can't we? And this idea of exploration and space exploration coming together with communications revolution, what a great time to be alive. We broke another record at the time. We broke the record for live concurrent YouTube streams, which is pretty neat. But this device, the mobile phone, the tablet, the cell phone, this is the most fundamental communications revolution in human history. Can you imagine 6 billion people on the planet have access to mobile devices? That's more people than have access to toothbrushes. It's more people than have access to working toilets. And it's bringing all of us together in such an amazing way. Beginning of this year, I visited Cairo, Egypt. I went to Tahrir Square, and I had a chance to talk with the people who actually use these devices to bring down their government. Because if you're able to communicate, you're able to realize that maybe your government isn't telling you the truth, and you can go about changing it. This is in Cangandí in Panama, in the Cunayala district of Panama, where I visited on an Earth Train expedition about a year ago. And this village of about 300 people, they actually moved their village from down by a river, a kilometer up to a top of a hill. No, they don't have any electricity, they don't have any running water, but they have mobile phone coverage, cell phone coverage. And they have a system where they use solar power to drive the mobile phones. And this has fundamentally changed this village. Before, when one of the villagers would go for maybe back to the big city and it took them a couple of days to get there, if they didn't come back in a few weeks, people think, oh my gosh, are they sick? Are they in the hospital? Or maybe they just got a job and they're going to stay. They wouldn't know. But now they know because of the phones. And in economics, they grow cassava roots. And these cassava roots, they have to put them into their canoe, and they paddle about a day, day and a half down the river to the Pacific Ocean and go island to island in order to sell cassava roots. Prior to the mobile phone technology, they had to just fill it up and go, and they wouldn't know whether the villagers had already had someone visit and sold them, and they'd have to return with their goods unsold or maybe sell at a loss. Now they just do it on the phone. Sure, I'll take a load of cassava roots, and they go and they sell them. Changed their way of life. This device and this communications revolution has fundamental ramifications for every single one of us. So if you work in a government, your job is to make sure that everybody has mobile phone connectivity, that there's internet connectivity. And that's what I discussed with President Fernandez, President of the Dominican Republic. I had dinner with him, which was an amazing experience because he was saying the most important thing is to do this. Never mind roads and bridges, we've got to get connectivity in front of people. If you work for a company, it means that you have to understand that people are communicating with you. Your customers are communicating with you through social networks, through things like Facebook and like Twitter. And like IBM does, you have to encourage your entire company to be active on those social networks. Unlike so many companies that forbid employees, believe it or not, to use social networks at work. It means if you're a parent, that you have to realize that when your kids are texting, they really are communicating, right? Realize this. And if you're a student, like many of you in this room, you need to understand that that dusty old resume, that may not get you the job. But what just might get you the job is that blog that you write about the subject that you're interested in, that you have passion about, that YouTube channel that you create in the area that you want to work in, that a prospective employer will find and they'll come to find you. That's what it's about. You have more power in your pocket than the entire Apollo moon program. Think of that. What are you going to do with that power? My name is David Meerman Scott, and this has been The Need to Explore. Thank you. Thanks very much.